Today's edition of MacVoices is brought to you by Blue Apron. Blue Apron delivers fresh ingredients and recipes to your door so you can cook something new and interesting tonight. Check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by visiting blueapron.com/MacVoices. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. And by MacVoices Magazine, our free Flipboard magazine that brings you some of the best Mac, iPhone, and iPad productivity tips on the web. High in signal, low in noise, just like MacVoices, MacVoices Magazine includes information on how you can get more out of your Apple technology. Subscribe at macvoices.com/magazine or search for MacVoices Magazine on Flipboard. Welcome to the MacJury on MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, I've been trying to get this particular panel together about this particular subject for literally a month. And so I'm delighted to have them, and I'm delighted to have a discussion about our topic. We're going to dig into the MacBook Pro with Touch Bar several months after it came out. Usually we try to do these shows like as a first weekend with or a first week with, but in the first place, not everybody got a Touch Bar, MacBook Touch Bar, as they came out right away because the supplies were a little bit limited. And so I thought, okay, first of all, CES interrupted, and I thought, well, better to give us all a whole lot of time to work with it, and then we can discuss it and maybe help you decide whether it's for you. So with that, let's introduce our panel and get going. And I'm going to take it from left to right on my screen. So that means first up, Mr. Jeff Carlson. Jeff, welcome. It's good to have you.
Hello. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. I'll give you a chance, like I do all the panels, to promote where you're from, what you do, and why we should pay attention to you.
Oh, I have no idea for the last one. So I write books and articles and things about Macs and photography. You can go see everything at jeffcarlson.com and basically just live as a Jeff Gamet superfan.
Wow. Okay. Didn't see that coming.
That was a segue.
Yeah, thank you. So the segue completely gave it away, but Mr. Jeff Gamet is here, and he has made a triply impressive effort because he's just moved into a new home, and he said, I'll still do it, and he's here. Jeff, it's great to see you.
It's awesome to be here. And when you say I just moved in, I literally just moved in. I haven't been in this place 24 hours yet. Oh, man.
We're honored to be your first guests.
Yeah, well, when you call me Chuck, how can I possibly say no? Also, being the biggest super fan of Jeff Carlson, how could I not be here?
Okay. It's not going to be bad enough that I've got to try to call on Jeff and Jeff. Now we've got you adoring each other.
Jeff's got to stick together.
We've got a thing.
Okay.
There's a handshake too. I could show you, Chuck, but I'd have to kill you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm afraid of what. Never mind. Give us a quick rundown on what you do, just for those people who might not know, the one person on the planet that might not know.
Okay, well, when I'm not in the middle of moving, I am the managing editor at Mac Observer. So I'm writing about all things related to anything Apple does. And I do a ton of podcasting, just kind of all over everywhere. The latest show that's been a lot of fun for me is Apple Context Machine. And then I'm on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. It's Google me. You can find me.
Great. Good to have you, and congratulations on the move.
Oh, thank you.
Last but absolutely not least, our friend Dr. Robert Carter is back from the Tech Doctor podcast. Robert, it's great to have you, and I'm sorry, I think I just stole your thunder. Oops.
That's all right, Chuck. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, especially with the esteemed Jeffs. Man, this is just awesome. I am Robert from the Tech Doctor podcast. We do a podcast about primarily Apple accessibility, and it's at dr-carter.com. And of course, you can subscribe anywhere you normally subscribe to your podcast, and it is called the Tech Doctor Podcast. But we're here to talk about the exciting Touch Bar MacBook Pro. So I'm ready to do it.
That's great. That's great. Well, we've all obviously had several months now to work with the MacBook Pro Touch Bar, or we got to find a nice, concise title for it. So I'm just going to take the same order and ask, just sort of general impressions or what you found new and noteworthy about it, and beyond the Touch Bar, of course. So, Jeff Carlson, how about if you start us off?
So, in brief, actually, I'm really glad that we waited a while, because I think the first impressions were fine, but not great. There were battery issues and things like that at least in my experience, are much better now after a software update that came. So, your wisdom of delaying this was very, very well placed. So my very short story about the MacBook Pro is that I'm coming to this machine from a 2010 MacBook Pro that over the years I had retrofitted with an SSD, and I had pulled the optical drive out to put a second SSD in, and that really extended the life of it. But last year, it just got to that point where like I needed a new machine. I needed something that could do some of the newfangled technologies that Apple has, like with the newer Bluetooth and things like that. And so it was time. And I got to tell you guys, there's this thing called a Retina screen. Have you seen this? It's amazing. To be able to look at that every day now, oh my gosh. Somebody should have told everyone about Retina. It's really cool. You should check it out.
Thank you. Good tip, Jeff. Thank you. A little late, but good tip. Good tip.
I had not had a Retina screen except for, like a review unit here and there. So, at first, especially, I was like, oh, I got to look at, I can't see any pixels, So, yeah, my 4-year-old geek out is now happening.
You're allowed. It's kind of fun. It's kind of fun to see it, actually.
It is. It's great making a big jump like that. I'm sure we'll get to this, but I don't know if someone bought a MacBook Pro last year, if they would be as excited about the new one, or if they'd be excited for different reasons, just in terms of performance. Like it starts up really quickly. It's really great.
Jeff Gamet, how about you? You have a lot of experience with a lot of different Macs. How has the Touch Bar been for you? The MacBook Pro Touch Bar been for you?
I'm kind of in love. So to cut to the chase, I'm really, really happy with this computer. Now, for comparison, I came from a 2012 Retina MacBook Pro that for the last year I felt like I really needed to replace, but I just couldn't do it because I didn't want to buy a new MacBook Pro with the same processor that was in my 2012 MacBook Pro. So I just kept waiting and waiting, and when this came out with a newer generation processor, I just jumped on it. The fact that it had Touch Bar was merely coincidence for me. It wasn't a determining factor. It was that I needed a new computer, and this is the computer that came out, and I'm so glad I bought it. I'm really, really happy with it.
Okay, that's good. Dr. Robert, how about you? What has your experience been?
Well, this is my third MacBook Pro. I started had a 2009, and then I, like Jeff Gamet, had a 2012, one of the very first Retina machines, and then this one. And the first two, I was incredibly excited about getting them. I was excited about ordering them and waiting for the ship and all. This one, I was excited at first, but before the machines even started shipping, I started reading all these negative things about the new MacBook, honestly, before almost anyone had them in their hands. And so it made me have a second thought, should I do this? Is this a good idea? And even saw some, fellow podcasters who had decided they were going to cancel their orders. And so it was I finally decided I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna try it out and make sure that it's gonna work for me. And if it just won't, I'm gonna send it back. But like the Jeffs, I guess I got it, and none of the things that really worried me turned out to be a problem. I like the keyboard just fine. Actually, after using it for a while, I think I actually like it better than my 2012 keyboard. The touch bar, I was a little concerned about how well that would or wouldn't work with VoiceOver, since I'm a VoiceOver user, but it works really great. Get more information from the touch bar than I ever got from the function keys. So that's exciting. And so I too am really in love with this machine. I love its size. I carry it back and forth to work, and it's easy to carry around. And I just have no complaints about it. And I doubled the RAM from the 2012 machine and doubled the size of the SSD. And of course, like Jeff said, got a better next generation processor. But the thing is, when you jump up like that in RAM and in SSD, you're gonna, at least I experienced a huge leap in performance and speed, and even things like audio hijack. Now I can record my podcast and not experience any latency, which I would experience before over USB audio. So I'm loving it.
When you say you doubled the SSD, did you mean you went to the 2 terabytes or?
No,
okay.
I went from a 256 to a 512.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to be sure, because I know that the 2 terabyte I really wanted, but there was no way I could justify the price differential.
Yeah,
that was a little crazy.
Yeah,
there aren't many wives on the planet that are going to tolerate that. I know you don't have to worry about that, Chuck, but nah, I went for the 512.
That's one of the reasons I don't have a wife, is I don't have to worry about it.
I understand.
Okay, so guys, we'll get to the touch bar in a second, but one of the big pain points allegedly was going to be that this had only USB-C ports, that the only other port on it is the headphone jack. And I'm curious to see just how you found that, how much of an adaptation it required you to make, and if you're still upset about it, because at the time you'd have thought the world was coming to an end.
Apple was doomed, obviously.
Clearly.
Yeah.
For me, it was no big deal. I just ordered a few dongles when I ordered the machine, but I got so tired of all the catastrophizing that I heard about it. And that's, I think, my major complaint about this whole process so far has been, I really wish people would give this machine more than 5 minutes in the Apple Store, or not go by just what they read, but because so many people have said things that have not been my experience at all. And gosh, give it a shot, that you can return it if it doesn't work for you.
Yeah. Jeff Gamet, how about you? Did the USB-C thing, was that a major pain point?
No, it wasn't. But when I buy a new computer after several generations, I know I have to buy new adapters. So I went into this purchase knowing I was going to have to buy some new adapters, and it wasn't that big of a deal for me. Now, granted, I spent $100 on adapters, but I won't ever have to buy adapters for this thing ever again. And I bought adapters that I'm not going to use very often, but I need to have them, like I bought a USB-C to VGA adapter so that when I go and do presentations at places where they don't have an Apple TV or an HDMI connection, I can still connect to their projector. So I bought some stuff that I don't need to use every single day. And in the end, what I found is that it's actually so much easier for me to use USB-C for the peripherals that I'm connecting, even though in some cases, like with my microphone that I'm on right now, it's a USB-A port. It's still easier to go through that dongle into USB-C. And as weird as that sounds, I have found that my life with my computer is actually more convenient now that I'm on USB-C, and that's in part because of dongles like the one that does HDMI plus power plus USB. So now I have like a mini multi-port thing that plugs into a single USB-C port. And I'm actually really happy with USB-C and Thunderbolt 3.
Okay. Jeff, were you I mean, I guess, was it painful for you, especially from the Thunderbolt perspective?
No, actually, and I don't want to completely echo what these guys have said because that's going to be sort of boring. However, overall, it hasn't been a very big deal, and for a few reasons. One, again, coming from the very old technology that I had no Thunderbolt at all. I had FireWire 800, which, at one point was like, wow, this is so fast. I had no USB 3. So, the people, my friends and my geek friends who know me probably thought I was insufferable the first week because I was like, I'm copying files really fast. You're not going to believe this. So like that was a lot of fun. That said, I totally understand. I think a big part of people's concern with switching to this new connector is financial because, yes, you're going to spend a lot of money for this MacBook Pro, and they're a little more expensive than they used to be, and then you have to go buy things on top of that. I probably spent like a couple $100 because I ended up buying a dock. It's the CalDigit Thunderbolt 3 dock.
I just got that.
Oh, well, see,
Jeff, do you like it?
I do like it. And what's great about it, and this is going to sound totally trivial, and yet it's not at all. I cleaned off my desk. Now, I know that sounds like no big deal, but, having like basically the same connectors for a long time, having not the best organizational sense of most people, like I had stuff that had just kind of accumulated on my desk, and this was a chance to clear it all away. I have like a giant pile over here of old cords and cables and things that I didn't need to use going forward, which was a great thing. So now, where before I would plug in, because my old MacBook Pro had all these ports, I'd plug in Ethernet and a couple USB things, and my external display and power. So like I would come home and then put my laptop on its little shelf and have to like plug 6 or 7 things in. Now I plug in 2 things. I have one cable that goes to that CalDigit dock, and that provides power. It also connects a couple of hard drives that are connected to the dock. It's where I have my headphones are plugged in, and my speakers. Like I do that, everything just goes through that one cable. I'm getting charged all of that, and then I have a separate adapter for my display. Because when I first got it, I had an older display that only did DVI. So, like the sheer simplicity of being able to just plug in 1 or 2 things has like immediately made that purchase price worthwhile. And I also have to say what's great, because we've got 4 USB-C ports, sometimes, especially if I'm like working on the couch downstairs or whatever, sometimes it's nice to be able to plug the power into the other side of the machine. And that's something that you're like, well, that's not a big deal. It's certainly not something that would affect your purchase decision, but on a day-to-day basis, you're like, oh, you know what? This cable over here is just in my way. Oh, I can just move it to the other side and still get power and what have you. Aside from that, the only thing I purchased for like travel, I have an SD card reader. So that I can import photos directly because the CalDigit doesn't have SD card. And then I bought a bunch of little, not a bunch, like 4 little Anchor USB-A to USB-C adapters so that I can, plug that onto the end of a lightning cable or what have you. But that's it. And so like the simplicity really, really resonates with me.
Hey, Jeff, since you're an Anchor fan, I have a tip for you. Pick up their gigabit USB-C Ethernet adapter.
Okay.
It's cheaper than the one that Apple sells in the Apple Store, which I believe is Belkin, and it's much more durable. That's the one that I bought, and I'm loving it. It's great. Best part for me, aside from the fact that it works, it has 3 different colored lights on top and no explanation of what they do.
Yay, lights!
Yay, but it works flawlessly.
Nice.
I want to put in, you're right, I reached around, I want to put in a plug for this. This is one of the little Anchor A to USB-C that Jeff just mentioned. These are, I think they were like $10 for 2 or something really very affordable. I just got a bunch of those and attached them to the end of any of my external hard drives and just about anything else. And all of a sudden I've got a completely compatible cable. And, I didn't have to buy the Apple version. Now, it took these a little while to come out, but not a long time. And you're right. And I went with one of the Hitachi little mini docks that I didn't really go with it for this. I purchased it for my MacBook, and it works just fine with this. And so it gave me some of the ports back on those rare occasions that I need them. But I feel like I'm finding myself less and less needing some of this stuff other than, Jeff, as you just said, maybe Ethernet to connect to a hardwired network at the office or a second monitor. And at my office, I have one of the Elgato Thunderbolt docks. So I bought the Apple Thunderbolt adapter to plug that dock into, and all my connections work from there. So, it really is, you may have to invest a little money, but the inconvenience is not that big a deal. And the convenience is wonderful. Jeff, I especially loved you pointing out the fact that you can plug the power in on either side. That, you're right, it sounds like such a trivial thing, but boy, is it convenient when you're sitting somewhere and the plug is on the wrong side. And, in an airport or something where you can only get one seat and the power's on the wrong side. So you're going to have to either run the cable underneath your laptop or across the keyboard or something. It's just, it's not worth the purchase price of the MacBook Pro, but it's well worth the price.
It's all the little things.
Yeah.
We gave up the MagSafe, but I haven't honestly missed it that much. It hasn't been a problem for me.
Funny you should mention MagSafe, because every time I use my laptop in public and plug in the power cord, I am freaking out the whole time because I am certain someone's going to kick the cable and ruin the port, yank my computer off the table onto the floor. I am really kind of freaking out about the MagSafe thing. The benefit? No. The consolation. There we go. That's what I was looking for. The consolation is that I typically don't have to take my power cord with me when I go out in public, because I can run for a crazy long time without charging.
Define crazy long time, Jeff. I'm really curious about this. And what are you doing when you're running for that crazy long time?
When I'm running like that without the power supply and I'm out in public, like at a coffee shop or whatever, I'm not podcasting, but I'll be writing, maybe editing video, definitely editing photos in Photoshop, and doing everything that I do. I might actually be editing audio. The only thing that I won't be doing is recording audio. And so I'm doing pretty much everything that I do when I sit at my desk. And I've had a problem come up more than once since I bought my MacBook Pro, which is I'll plug in the USB-C cable into my computer and then forget to get down on the floor and plug in the power adapter to an outlet. And I'll run so long, like I'll run hours on end. And when my computer stops working, I'm freaking out trying to figure out why my screen just went black. And it's because I've gone for 6 hours without my computer sleeping, maybe 8 hours without my computer sleeping, and it just kept going the whole time. And I had forgotten I'd never plugged in a power supply.
This is actually a good query. Which model did you get? Because I'm wondering about the battery life and the graphics card especially.
All right, so I just brought up about this Mac to make sure I get everything right. I have the 2.7 gigahertz Intel Core i7, 16 gigs of RAM, and the Intel, the higher end video card is the one that I have in here.
Okay, you got a 50-inch?
15-inch, yes.
Okay.
That's interesting. Now I got the middle model as far as the graphics card goes. But I did spring for a 1 terabyte SSD.
Yep, I have the 1 terabyte SSD. So, okay, double checked. I have the Radeon Pro 460.
Okay. I want to echo to your the battery life. I mean, I was in a training session yesterday, and we went in at about 8:30, and we were still going at 4:30. And I expected at some point that my laptop would be fading away, and I still had power to spare. Now, I wasn't doing anything much more than, calling up emails, doing some web surfing to follow along and that kind of thing. I wasn't editing video, but I still was quite pleased and kind of shocked because that's the first time I've actually really done that kind of work away from a power outlet and for that long. For me, the battery life is considerably shorter if I'm rendering video. Editing is nothing, doesn't matter. But as soon as you start to render it and all those processors start to chew up things, they also chew up power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the reason I was asking is I'm seeing much better battery life, especially much better than initially before Apple plugged that hole that was leaving the Radeon processor running when it shouldn't have been, when it was switching. But if I'm running Photoshop or something like that, I'll definitely take a hit. But that means that I get maybe 5 or 6 hours out of it instead of 8. Which again, coming from my old machine where in 2010 getting 4 or 5 hours of battery life was amazing, and especially because I was getting about 45 minutes on my old machine because the battery was just depleted. So battery definitely seems like a your mileage may vary thing, and overall I think it's living up to the higher numbers, maybe not consistently that Apple claims, but it still falls in that you can get a day's work done. Mm-hmm. Especially if you be good about your screen brightness and caps lock brightness and things like that, where you can do things to minimize the power consumption.
Yeah, I've got the 13-inch and I've had no complaints so far with battery life.
Today's edition of Mac Voices is brought to you by Blue Apron. You can cook something new and interesting tonight when you visit blueapron.com/MacVoices. They provide the ingredients and recipes. You have the satisfaction of preparing and enjoying it. A true win-win situation. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. I've been telling you about Blue Apron, about how easy it is to get fresh ingredients delivered right to your door, about the terrific recipes that are not only delicious, but also help you expand your culinary horizons, both from a cooking and an eating perspective. Now, though, I think it's time to show you what the Blue Apron experience looks like by opening one of my very own Blue Apron orders for you. When your Blue Apron box arrives, you may have some idea of what to expect if you check the website, but I think it's more fun just to open it and discover what you're going to have. First, you will see the recipes and some additional information on top. Take a second to see what you'll be enjoying for dinner in the coming days. Be inspired by the photos, maybe browse the ingredients and preparation instructions, and start to get hungry. Next, open the insulated bag and start unpacking the fruits, vegetables, spices, and other ingredients that don't require refrigeration. You'll notice that some are shrink wrapped so they can't be damaged or break, where others are whole, just like you brought them home from the supermarket. Except there is no supermarket. You'll also notice that there's no waste here. Blue Apron sends you exactly what you need and only what you need, so you don't have anything extra to throw away. Then there are the knickknacks, items that are specific to each recipe, all bundled up separately so you will know exactly what is what when cooking time comes. You pretty much don't need to label an onion, but some ingredients might not be quite as obvious to you. Blue Apron knows that and makes sure that you can't be confused or make a mistake. Next, remove the cardboard divider and you'll find the top section of the refrigerated area. My Blue Apron order usually arrives at my office, and I'll talk about that in an upcoming episode, so I usually have to wait until the evening to unpack my box. And not only haven't I found the ice packs melted, I haven't even found them mushy. The food is always frozen solid and cold. Between the insulated bags and the ice packs, freshness is simply not an issue. Unpacking the pork, shrimp, beef, chicken, whatever this particular box holds is the last step. The fresh veggies and fruits go into the crisper in the refrigerator, the meat goes into the freezer, and I'm ready to decide which dish I'm going to make for dinner tonight. So that's the Blue Apron unboxing experience. Sort of like a culinary Christmas each time an order arrives. There's a lot more to tell you about Blue Apron, but for now, why not try Blue Apron for yourself? Blue Apron is so serious about you giving them a try, they'll send you 3 free meals, including free delivery, if you visit blueapron.com/MacVoices. Fill out some delivery information, and your first Blue Apron order will be on its way to you so you can do your own unboxing. If you do, send me pictures and let me know how you liked it, because I know you're going to like it. You will love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron. So don't wait. blueapron.com/MacVoices for 3 free meals and free delivery right to your door. Nothing to lose, everything to gain. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. Thanks to Blue Apron for their support of MacVoices. Jeff Carlson, you just mentioned screen brightness. That's one thing about this screen. If you turn the brightness the whole way up, man, it's like arc weld. You know,
I don't know if I've actually even done that. I don't dare because it's bright.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, almost to the point that you don't want it that bright.
And I must say, not to jump too far ahead into Touch Bar, but I really sort of love the fact that you can change the screen brightness and the volume from the Touch Bar just by like doing a quick little slide of your finger. Mm-hmm. Like in the past, you'd like go bang, 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 bang on the brightness key. Again, not a big deal. It's not like I ever, found myself cursing because I had to push the brightness key 5 times instead of 4 or whatever. But it's an adjustment that I make often enough, especially if I'm, I'll have it brighter when I'm in my office plugged into power. But if I go to a coffee shop, I want to bring the brightness down. It's an adjustment that I will probably make, 2 or 3, maybe 4 times a day. And it's a nice little convenience to just have that as a little quick slider that then goes away.
It's a real example, honestly, of one of those things you don't know you need or want or would enjoy until you have it. I never thought about we could do this with a touch bar until we had one.
Jeff Gamet, Jeff Carlson just mentioned editing photos, or excuse me, running Photoshop. Are you? How do you find it for editing photos? And graphics work? Because I know you do a fair amount of that.
I do get a little bit of a hit on my battery when I'm in Photoshop, but it's not that big of a hit. It's not like a significant impact on my battery. And just keep in mind when Jeff Carlson is working on photos, I mean, he's an excellent photographer and he's working with some serious images. And what I'm doing is taking things that are like retina screen resolution, and I'm probably hacking out pieces of other images and throwing them together to make a clever image for an article. I'm not doing the pro level photographic editing that Jeff is doing.
Okay. So Mr. Pro level graphic photo editing.
I tried to put that on a business card once. It just didn't work.
Yeah,
You need a bigger card.
Yeah, says the designer. How is this machine and that screen for editing photos?
I love it. Honestly, that's a time when I will bring the brightness up, not all the way, but you want to make sure that you're not working on something so dim that you're screwing up your adjustments. I haven't done a whole lot of close comparison looking at like the color space, because this is a wide color monitor. Is that the term they're using? Wide gamut, wide color. I can't remember Apple's terminology sometimes. And so, this screen, physically displays more colors than say older ones. It's not always really apparent. It's mostly in sort of like reds and oranges and some blue hues, I think. But that said, what's great is being able to look at the screen and know that things are going to be pretty accurate, and just that plus the processing power of being able to apply stuff in Lightroom and see the results right away and all of that really make this, for me, I think it's a great photographer's computer.
Okay, so let's move to the big one, and that's the touch bar, because this was such a radical departure from some of what we saw before. And Robert, I want to start with you because I think you would be approaching the touch bar maybe a bit differently than any of the rest of us.
Absolutely.
Did you miss or do you miss the physical keys for some of those adjustments, or have you been able to adapt to the touch bar pretty easily?
Well, I've been able to adapt to it pretty easily, and the reason that Chuck is mentioning that I use it differently is because I use the touch bar with VoiceOver, so I'm not actually using it visually. But it turns out, and of course we were wondering how this would work before we saw it actually in working when the Apple announced it. Turns out that they created excellent VoiceOver support for the touch bar, and so the feedback that you get is just the same kind of feedback you get on an iOS screen with VoiceOver. And so you can simply slide your finger across the touch bar, and VoiceOver will tell you each icon as you pass it. And if you need to activate one of those, like for volume or brightness, as Jeff was saying, you just double tap on the touch bar item. But the thing is that with the function keys, I would kind of have to count to figure out, okay, am I on F5 or F6? Most of us, I'm a good touch typist, but most of us aren't that great on the function keys, I don't think. But the touch bar, you get all that feedback right there. So you don't have to worry about that anymore. And you also get context sensitive information depending on which app you're using. If you're in mail, there's an icon right there on the touch bar for sending mail. If most of us are pretty good with keyboard shortcuts, but if you need that stuff, it's there. So for me, the touch bar has been a win-win, honestly.
Robert, you make it almost sound like it's been a better experience for you than the function keys.
It has been for me, but it's I'm skilled in working with iOS and VoiceOver. I'm not sure. I think for some people it would probably take some getting used to. But yeah, it's been a perfectly fine experience for me.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
Robert, do you find that third-party apps that are starting to use the touch bar, are they also building in that accessibility for like special functions and things?
Yeah, I think so. I've had more experience or played more with it, honestly, with the Apple apps, but things like MacPod just added touch bar for their Clean My Mac app, and it seems to, from what little bit I've looked at it the last few days, seems to work just fine with VoiceOver and the touch bar. So I think it's one of those things where I'm sure there might be some issues, but Apple's done such a good job of building accessibility into the platform that I don't know that these developers necessarily having to do a whole lot extra to make VoiceOver work with the touch bar. Okay. I don't know about that, absolutely. But I mean, and I'm not saying it's perfect, and there are always things that can be improved on, but it's really quite impressive so far, honestly.
Okay, so Jeff Gamet, how about you? What is your impression of the touch bar, both as an interface element and as far as the implementation of that interface element go?
Well, I went into the touch bar totally indifferent because the touch bar was not a determining factor in me buying this computer. It was just one of the features that happened to be in the computer that I needed to buy at the time. And with that in mind, wow, I'm actually really impressed with what I'm doing with the touch bar. And I prefer it to having a row of physical function keys. And I know a lot of people were freaking out before the computer came out. There's no physical escape key or whatever other key they felt that people really needed. And it didn't matter to me because I knew Apple was going to think this through. And whatever keys we actually really needed to have available to us would be there. So that wasn't a big deal. But what I found is that once I had the touch bar, I really liked using it. And like Jeff was saying, sliding to make adjustments for brightness or audio is so much more convenient than tapping the buttons, which I know for people that are really into the function keys, it sounds like I'm just talking like a crazy man, but those sliders are really nice. And I liked that I was able to change what was in my default button selection. So I took out the Siri button, because it turns out I really, really don't like using Siri with my Mac. And so I popped that button out and put in the screen capture button because I take screen captures every day, several times. And it remembers exactly what I did the last time I snapped a photo. So it always remembers I want to capture a window and I'm going to save it to a folder in Dropbox. And I just tap the button, select the window, and I'm done. And it's not a big thing unless you do it all the time, but I'm all about economy of motion, and it's a thing that I'm a big advocate for on iOS. And now that we have a touch interface of sorts on the Mac, man, I'm all about that here too.
Jeff, it took me a little while, and I run into people constantly that seem shocked at what you just said, that you can do some customization of the touch bar. Can you give us a quick idea of where that's done and the difficulty of doing it?
It's actually not hard to do. Let's see if I can remember how to do it now. Yeah, and in the Finder, View, Customized Touch Bar. I bet you I already wrote a tip about this a while ago. And okay. So once you bring up that interface, it's nice because you're just clicking and dragging to move elements around to have what you want. The one thing that I wish Apple would do is make it so that when you're dragging from the on-screen part, meaning on your Mac's display, to the touch bar part, your cursor should show up on the touch bar so you actually know what you're clicking on and dragging around. It would be a nice visual cue.
Okay. Jeff Carlson, how about you? Have you customized your touch bar, or are you using it pretty much stock?
I am using it stock because I forgot that you can customize it, which actually is something that I need to take advantage of because what's interesting is everybody talking about the escape key, and I didn't realize how often I used the escape key until I started reaching for it on the touch bar. The thing is, I've never missed it. I've never, not hit the escape key. It hasn't changed my muscle memory at all, which is great. And the only thing that I've had to change my muscle memory, it turns out that when I hit the delete key, I tend to overshoot it. And of course, when on any other keyboard, that's not a big deal. But I'm basically hitting it with like the bottom pad of my finger. Well, the top pad keeps hitting the Siri button, and so every once in a while Siri will just pop up, and I'll be like, I don't want you, go away. So I'm going to be removing that button because just like Jeff, I rarely, if ever, use Siri on my Mac.
Jeff, thank you for making me feel better about the problem that I have. I overshoot the delete key all the time as well, and I have gobs of random screenshots because of that.
Okay, this is interesting.
Yeah. So another great thing about the touch bar, that again, like maybe many people don't run into this, but I tend to listen to music while I'm working, and for whatever reason, years ago, I would put iTunes into full screen mode and just set it off to the side so that I can get to it easy by just switching my desktop spaces. But normally it's just sort of out of the way because I don't want to see it. It's iTunes. And so what's interesting about the touch bar is the touch bar is smart enough to know when you have different media forward. So let's say iTunes is playing music in the background and I have a Safari page open to YouTube. Well, if you just tap the sort of play pause button on the touch bar that appears, that will control the playback of the YouTube video, which is also kind of handy because it'll like show you like the progress of how far you are in the video without having to wiggle your mouse in the window to view that information. But then when iTunes is in the background, it shows up in the control strip. So it's just a matter of a couple taps to say, okay, give me the controls for iTunes, and then let me either pause or skip a track or whatever without even having to go to the application in its own desktop space at all. Again, this is like something that I didn't realize that I did a lot, but it's just enough so that when I need that control over iTunes or over playback, or I want to God forbid hit a web page that has an auto-playing video, boy, it's really nice to just stop that right away. So, that's been a nice surprise. And I think we also need to talk about Touch ID, but maybe that's next.
Well, I'm going to throw my 2 cents in on the touch bar, and then by all means, let's get to Touch ID. I'm finding that my principal use. Well, first of all, I had no trouble adapting to it. I mean, I went there expecting to find what I had in the function keys, and it was still there. And as I went along and learned that yes, you could customize things and you could move them around, it became kind of a non-event. Now it feels strange to go back to a different keyboard and reach for the function keys to turn the volume up or down or whatever. So I found the adaptation very easy. In Final Cut Pro is probably my biggest thing for video editing, that it is so nice to be able to reach up there and be able to scroll very precisely with a finger. And instead of trying to maneuver the cursor around. And for those of you that work in Final Cut, Apple implemented this little disappearing thumb so that it doesn't clutter up the interface, but it also makes it kind of hard to reach up and grab it. And you don't have that problem when you just are reaching up with your finger to the touch bar and sliding it around. I said this when it first came out. I thought it was an interesting, not compromise between the iPad touch interface and the Mac's interface, but just taking that concept of having a touch interface, but implementing it a little bit differently so you weren't smearing up your screen. And I stand by that. I think that this was not a compromise. I think it was a completely different approach, and one that, okay, you may not be able to touch everything on the screen the way you can on an iPad, but you are able to touch what you need. And That's kind of my bottom line on the touch bar.
Yeah, I will say that I haven't found myself using a lot of the like application commands in the touch bar, and I think that's purely because of muscle memory and yes, I know I can swipe through. Oh, sorry about that. my
must be bedtime.
It must be bedtime. My HomeKit, my smart lights turn off when I'm basically when it says, all right, it's time to go downstairs and stop working for the day. Anyway, sorry about that. Swiping through images in the Photos app, like you can totally do that on the touch bar. Because I'm so used to doing it on the keyboard or with the mouse, I just don't. But I think that's pure muscle memory. Having worked in things like that for a long time, and I think also because I imagine developers are still getting their feet wet with it and trying to figure out, okay, yeah, we have this space that we can do something with, and for now, let's just make it easy to access some controls. But it wouldn't surprise me as they get more experience with it, figuring out like novel ways of taking advantage of that extra screen.
Agreed. Robert, Jeff mentioned Touch ID, and I have to say that I'm embarrassed because if he hadn't said it, I wouldn't have thought about it. Because now it's just so natural for me to have it on my Mac that it's sort of like my iPhone and iPad. If I go back to a previous generation model, one of the older ones, you stick your thumb on it and it's like, well, what's wrong with this thing? Come on, let's go. And that's the way it is now. It's just become so much a part of it that I forget. Has that been anywhere near your experience with it?
Oh, yeah. I love Touch ID on the Mac. I love it with being able to log into the Mac. I love using it with 1Password. And it was really cool the other day when I decided I was going to support the Twitterific Kickstarter project for Mac. I was able to do that using Apple Pay with Touch ID on the MacBook. So it's really a great thing, I think.
That's interesting. Do you think it facilitates online purchases and payments? And obviously it's designed to do that, but you actually found that made a difference, made it a superior experience?
Yeah, I mean, there was just an Apple Pay button right there on the Kickstarter page, and I just touched the ID and it was done. No entering of credit card information or going to PayPal or any of that stuff.
Okay, Jeff Gamet, Touch ID.
Touch ID has become my passcode for everything I do on my Mac. And I didn't know how much I would really use it because it's not like I'm doing Apple Pay on my Mac, although I know I can. It's just one of those things that was there. And I found that once it was set up, that I really prefer just sticking my finger on a scanner to log into my computer, to unlock 1Password, and to do all these things that I'm otherwise typing my passcode over and over and over every single day. So yeah, I'm really liking having it, even though I'm not using it to its full potential.
That's interesting. Jeff Carlson, you were the one that sort of brought it up, and that's why I left you for third. Why did you like it so much? Because obviously you were the one that brought it up.
You left me for third because I have nothing new to say. It's exactly that. It's I access 1Password many times during the day. And, again, like didn't realize how often I was typing in my password because that's like there was no alternative. It's like, okay, you want to do something, you need to type in your password. And so being able to just, put a finger right on the Touch ID sensor to open 1Password to fill out a web form or something, it so quickly became second nature that when I was, I can't remember like I think I was on like my wife's computer or something and needed to open one password, and like, where do I put my finger? Why isn't this working? It sort of completes that loop, especially as Robert said with Apple Pay. Not having to, not even having to get into one password to get all your credit card information, just saying, oh, I know that this is secure and it's simple and convenient, and then boom, I'm done. I don't have reason to use it because this MacBook Pro is basically just used by me. But I love the fact that if you have multiple users, let's say you're sharing it in a family or something like that, the Touch ID also acts as fast user switching, which is just, like a small, brilliant thing. All you have to do is put your finger on there. It's like, oh, well, this is somebody else. We're gonna switch the user. Again, another like little implementation detail that really helps.
I think Apple really did their homework when they came out with this Touch ID on this machine. They thought of a lot of conveniences.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like that's what we keep building up to. This was, we talk a lot about evolution versus revolution, and this was evolution, but there were some pretty significant evolutionary advances here that there's not much question they're going to find themselves or find their way into future Macs, whether they're laptops or desktops. I'm just waiting for a new keyboard that will implement a touch bar. I'd be shocked if that isn't something we see sometime this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Might happen.
Yeah. So we're going to start to run short on time, but I did want to ask, is there anything that you found, because I have only one little thing and it's not that big a deal, but anything that you're not happy with or that you don't think is as good on this machine or should be improved or whatever? Robert, I'll start with you.
I have not really found anything that I'm terribly unhappy with. I have found that with my audio USB mixer interface and audio hijack, I have to make sure that I always plug it into the same port that I set up with audio hijack. Otherwise, it fails. So there are, a few little gotchas that you have to be sure and keep in mind. And, who knows what that's all about with the changes in the USB-C interface and all. But honestly, I have to really kind of nitpick pretty far to find things that I'm unhappy about. I mean, I guess it would be, great if it even had more battery life, but I still carry it back and forth to work most days and don't bother even to take the power adapter. And I don't use it all day long, but I use it when I want to, and I have plenty of power left. So I'm pretty big on this machine, honestly.
Good. Jeff Carlson?
I think, again, little nitpicky things. For some reason, sometimes the right side of my touch bar will just not draw properly or blank out. I have no idea why. And
I've got that too.
Okay. So, it's probably just some little system bug. I think one of the things that is kind of a negative, but kind of not. When they first announced this, one of the big things, other than moving to USB-C, was the processor not being as super good as it probably could be, which basically boiled down to it's not the next generation of Intel processors that I think may come this year. And also, a big deal was that you can only put 16 gigs of RAM in the Pro model. And there were a lot of people, myself included, who were like, 16 gigs of RAM, that's insane. I want to do photos and video editing, and you just can't do it at 16 gigs. This coming from someone who'd been using an 8 gig machine for 6 years. And it was enough of a big deal that Apple, they had to get out in front of it, and Phil Schiller, explained why they couldn't do more than 16 gigs for the technical reasons. All of that said, I've not noticed any, limitation or hesitation or, hitting any sort of memory ceilings when I'm doing stuff. I'm not, editing, 20-track video or anything like that. So, for, real high-end pro video editors who wanted this to be their portable studio, I can see that frustration. But, I think for, 95% of the people who would buy this machine and use this machine, it's a non-issue. Which genuinely surprised me. I mean, I would have gotten my MacBook Pro weeks earlier if I had just ordered it right away. But it was that memory thing, and I was like, oh boy, maybe I should hold off another year. Maybe something will come. And then I decided to go with it, and then it was back ordered, so I had to wait an extra month. So kids, don't second guess yourself. Just pull out your credit card. No, that's not a good lesson. Sorry. So there's that. It's too darn light and thin and cool looking. That's the problem with it.
Yeah. It might float away.
It might float away. The keyboard is perfectly fine. I think I'm happy to adapt to it. But it's fine. I type, it makes words. It doesn't have needles or razors on each keycap, so we're good.
I discovered with the keyboard that I really had to learn to develop a very light touch for the keyboard to feel comfortable.
I think I'm slightly opposite of that, where my natural tendency is to hit it a little bit harder, and I'm I'm finding my hands be a little bit more sore because of that. Just the muscle memory of I have to pound at my keyboard, and when the reality is, like you said, going lighter is a better option.
I completely forgot about the keyboard. That was the other big crisis of this. Oh my God! We have a chiclet keyboard. The world's coming to an end. And maybe because I had a MacBook, I was a little more used to it. But I preferred the feel of the MacBook Pro over the MacBook. But at the end of the day, it's the keyboard. And Jeff, you made an interesting statement. It makes words. There are no razors. Yeah, it's fine. Now, we haven't heard from Mr. Gamet yet, and he may disagree with all of us, but Jeff?
He's going to lift up his hands. He's going to have no fingers.
Yeah. They're gone.
Yeah.
No. So I come from old school computer typing, where when you type on a key, you mean it. Mm-hmm. And to that end, I'm a Matthias Tactile Pro keyboard user.
Oh no!
And I mean, when you type a key, you're typing. And when I played with the MacBook keyboard, I did not like it at all. And the keyboard on my 2012 Retina MacBook Pro, it was okay, but it was a chiclet keyboard, and it just felt like a chiclet keyboard. The Touch Bar MacBook Pro keyboard feels so much better. It's still not like when I sit down and pull out this aircraft carrier of a keyboard and I'm typing on that, but it's nice. I'm okay with it. And like Jeff said, it doesn't have razor blades or needles sticking out of it, so it's a perfectly functional keyboard, and it's one that doesn't make me angry to use. So that's saying a lot for a laptop.
And it's a little bit louder, so that's a little closer to your Matthias keyboard.
It is. Yeah, it's kind of a warm, fuzzy feeling for me, and annoys the crap out of everyone else.
How about Jeff? How about any disappointments for you? Those are the wrong words to use, but anything you'd like to see changed or upgraded or done differently?
I get why we don't have 32 gigs of RAM, and it turns out it's not a problem for me, so I'm not worried about that. The thing that is weird for me and is a little bit frustrating is that this computer was clearly not designed to be used in closed lid mode. And so if you're like me and you have a 34-inch wide display on your desk, which is as crazy as it sounds, you don't need to have the lid open on your laptop because you've got plenty of screen real estate, or at least I have plenty of screen real estate. So I tried using my computer in closed lid mode for a little while, and I found that without the touch bar available, without Touch ID available, the computer felt very hobbled. I also found that it didn't wake from sleep reliably in closed lid mode. And so now that I use it in open lid mode, you're going to love this. I take my laptop and push it back, and my big display is in front of the laptop display. So I'm actually not even looking at the laptop display, which is stupid that I have to do. So yeah, it's just the way it handles external displays. It's clearly not designed for that in closed lid mode.
So then how do you manipulate the touch bar? I'm trying to visualize your setup.
Okay, so here, this hand is my display, which would be closest to you.
Okay.
And then here is my laptop display.
Okay.
And so the keyboard for the laptop display is sticking out underneath the big display. So I can just reach over and touch the touch bar and the Touch ID buttons. And I just have to remember, don't put anything on that part of the display, because then I have to like move my laptop around so I can see the display to move it back where it's supposed to be. And it's just a stupid thing, but this is my first world problem.
Be a lot easier, Jeff, if you just started using VoiceOver all the time.
You know, you're right. I should be using VoiceOver.
I take that back. I think you better stick with the display for the kind of stuff that you do. I'm just kidding with you.
Well, it would be nice if I would get off my butt and learn how to use VoiceOver effectively, because that would be great for the times when I need to do something with the display I'm actually not visibly looking at.
Yeah. It is nice to have that option when you want it.
Well, the only thing I found wanting, because it's interesting, I haven't had the right side of the touch bar issue. I typically, in fact, I never use my MacBook Pro in closed lid mode. The only thing I found this to be, and I've done side-by-side comparisons to make sure that I wasn't imagining it, I think that the speakers, or scratch that, the sound that comes out of the new MacBook Pro isn't quite as good as my last MacBook Pro. It sounds maybe just a little thinner, and it's tough to explain, but it doesn't feel like it's missing like the low frequencies or anything. It just feels like there's something missing a little bit. And you know, and now that I'm used to it, it's only if I do it side by side. And of course, you can rectify the whole thing just by using a set of external speakers. So if you really play a lot of music or whatever, you're probably going to do that anyway. But you know, for just if I'm out somewhere and I'm editing a podcast, or recording or listening to video or audio, it just doesn't come across quite as full as some of the previous ones, and really as full as say the iPad Pro. So that's that's a very small. Robert, I think you said it. I'm very much nitpicking. It was probably the only thing I noticed. It's like, okay, that's not quite up to par, but everything else far outweighs that little bit of sound difference for me.
Yeah, I sort of agree with you, honestly, that it does sound a little bit thin in a sense. It sounds quite a bit better to me actually than my 2012 MacBook Pro sounded, but I'd still like to see it sound a little fuller somehow.
Yeah, I don't know, but then Dave Hamilton would probably tell us, just grab an EQ somewhere, an EQ application, and throw something in. But I'm not going to go to that trouble, because then that really it's like.
No, I think Dave would say, why are you using those speakers?
Yeah, that's probably true too.
True, yeah. Probably.
Yeah. He's going to say get a pair of AirPods. So.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, thank you. I think I can speak for all of us and say that we would buy this machine again, our respective configurations and all. It's been a delight to use, and I can't think of anything that would cause me to recommend not to buy it. Keyboard, RAM. I mean, there's no reason not to get this machine, love it, and be productive with it.
I agree.
Chuck, you've been asking us questions about our computers. I'm going to ask you a question about yours. How long did it take before you stopped thinking about which way you were holding the USB-C plug before plugging it in? Because with USB-A, we always look to see if it's right side up or upside down.
You know what, Jeff? I think because my prior habit was stick it in and see if it would fit and then turn it, I wouldn't look. So it took me no time at all. You know, it was before that I would not look. I just, that's not right, and then flip it over. Now it's just like reach in and slide it in and you're done. So,
which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. But that's a really interesting question. You know, how do you approach your USB plugs? Did you look at them before or after trying to put them in? Oh.
Yeah, and for me, there's always a super state of USB where it didn't matter how I was holding the plug. You'd always have to flip it over at least once before it would go in, even if you're holding it correctly the first time.
Always.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And with USB-C, I never think about it. I just plug everything in and it works.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a real delight.
You'll be able to do that with your new iPhone next year with its USB-C connector.
Yeah, how about that?
Robert, that's another show.
Do you really want to know what I think about that?
It's only a rumor. I shouldn't have brought it up. Sorry.
Yeah. So let's go around the room. I want to make sure that folks know where they can find you with all the details when you're not here serving on the MacJury. So this time we'll go in reverse order. Robert, I'll let you start out first.
Okay, well, thanks for having me, Chuck. It's been a real pleasure to spend a little time with you all this evening. And just to show you that I am fearless, I have done this entire video podcast on battery.
Wow.
Nice.
And so I'm Robert Carter. Again, we do the Tech Doctor podcast along with my co-host, Allison Hartley. As far as I know, we will both be at MacStock again this summer, and looking forward to seeing any of you all there who happen to come. And let's see, the website again is dr-carter.com, and my Twitter handle is Robert_Carter. And thanks for having me, Chuck.
It's always a pleasure, Robert. Thank you for being here. Mr. New homeowner or new apartment renter or whatever it is, New dwelling.
New place guy.
New place guy. Thank you. I was trying to find something clever and couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's nice to have at least this part of my place set up and livable. You take it as you can get it. So, Robert, I'm going to be at MacStock also. I am really looking forward to catching up when we're there.
Excellent. We'll do that.
Awesome. And Chuck, I'm assuming you'll be there?
I will be there. Count on it.
I actually already knew that. I was kind of setting you up.
Thank you
for your answer. And you can find me at macobserver.com. You can find me at freshbrewedtales.com. And now that I'm actually pretty much done with my move, I can start writing stuff there again too. And you can find me on Twitter. I'm Jeff Gamet, and same thing on Instagram. And Chuck, I just love doing shows with you.
Well, that's great, because if you love doing it, I'm going to keep calling.
It surprises me every single time, but okay.
All right. Mr. Carlson, will you be joining us at MacStock, since that seems to be a topic of the day?
I will not. I'm sorry.
Oh, we're sorry.
And now I get booted off the podcast, and everything I said gets erased.
Sorry. Hardly.
Nope, sorry. So you can find me at jeffcarlson.com. On Twitter, I'm at Jeff Carlson, also on Instagram. And at TidBITS, tidbits.com. I haven't written as much as I used to, but I still they're my family. I've been with them for a long time, so got things in the hopper there. But yeah, otherwise, Jeff Carlson is where you'll find stuff I've written recently. I write a column for the Seattle Times, and I did a big piece for the Wirecutter about 360-degree cameras. So fun things like that, and photos. You can find photos there.
Great. Thank you for being here, Jeff. It's always fun.
Oh, thank you for having me on. This is a great show, great group of people, and yeah, I'll just stop now. Otherwise, I'll get all weepy.
Hugs.
Hugs. All right. Well, folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices, the MacJury on MacVoices, and I am delighted to have this panel together finally to talk about a great machine that I think we all enjoy. And we will be back again soon with more. Oh, it's been a long day. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes, links to subscribe, and to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, SoundCloud, the MacVoices blog, the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter, and on MacVoices magazine, free on Flipboard that helps you do more with your Apple tech. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.